Let's get recording. Recording in progress. So all I do is I go like this. I say cut and we're ready, and then we'll get straight into it. So, um, cut. So today, everyone, I'm really, really happy. I have what I consider one of the premier players in the UK pétanque scene, and that is a wonderful young man, in my opinion, as opposed to myself, and that is Jason White, affectionately known as Jay by many, many players. So welcome, Jay, to Pétanque Coach Interviews.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to help promote the sport.
Well, that's brilliant because I've got some pretty in-depth questions for you, and a lot of them are around the game. A lot of them about your career, your motivation, your drivers, and I know you've been around for quite a while, considering your youngish appearance and years, because you've played juniors, you've played Espoirs, you're now in the men's. So, where did you start? How did it all start? What
Uh,
brought you
it's, it's a bit of a random story, actually. As a teenager, I think I was about 13. My stepdad, Dean Ashby, who I play with all the time, he obviously wasn't my stepdad at the time. He was actually working in a pupil referral unit, which we work at now together. But he was working with my mum, and they met, got together, and he actually invited me along once to watch Petanque. And I said, "What was that?" And he said, "Oh, it's very similar to bowls." And I said, "Nope, I don't want to watch an old man sport." And anyway, I kind of bit the bullet and I went after a little bit of kicking and screaming, shall we say. I didn't want to go and went along, had a little practice. It was at Hartley Country Club in Kent. A lot of players in the UK scene will probably know that place. Um, and I didn't mind it to start. And we'd spoken a little bit a few weeks later, and he said, if I really want to get into it, he'll buy me a set of ball. Spoke to me about the junior setup. Let's say I wasn't particularly the best behaved teenager with my group of friends, so it was a massive deal for me. Once he told me the commitment levels and what it takes to get in and around the national setup and even the regional setup at that time, I dedicated myself to it massively because I thought this is a chance to get out of a bad spot and maybe make something of myself. So I put in a lot of time, a lot of effort, and I was really lucky in the sense that I had someone like Dean, which then obviously his brother Scott, who was at the top of the game at that time and has been for many years, the same as Dean. His teammates, Kev Spillett, Roland, etc. So I was really lucky in the respect that I managed to come into that crowd as a beginner, but also put in a lot of time, a lot of effort into making sure that I was the best that I could be all the time. So yeah, kind of just started from nowhere really. Just
Brilliant.
a random sport that I'd never heard of, and now I'm completely in love with.
Us old men, we play these strange sports, but it's great to have youngsters that come in. And what I've always found is, I'm sure you see the same thing, is that the youth are the products of the older generation, and we don't force the sport upon you as you, but encourage, because it's rare that you get youngsters that come in that are not from Petanque families. I mean, is that your experience with it?
Yeah, I think like you hear stories of a couple that just kind of went along with other petanque players. Maybe family were at the pub and they saw it happening and kind of killed a bit of time while their parents were having a few beers or whatever. But you don't really hear too many stories of people just getting into it. But that's something that I'm loads of people are trying to break. I'm trying to break that working in the school that I'm in. I've put in some requests for some funding to build petanque pitches at the school to get the students involved. So I work with underprivileged students. They're sort of when they get kicked out of mainstream school, they come to us. A lot of them kind of noted as being written off or having all these issues, which they're not. They're just misunderstood. So I'm trying to give them the outlet that I had, and it might not take off. They might prefer football or basketball, but it's a work in progress. But I'm hoping to get there at some point, and then I know that in the school that I work in, we have outreach projects. So hopefully, if that grows, it can go around the London Borough and then grow from there and get more people involved, get more people out of trouble, and just give them a second chance or a first chance at something that they might not have ever really thought of.
I think that's a remarkable aspiration and a great thing that you're doing. It's something where the youth and the youngsters, if they're disaffected, if they're not, the great thing with pétanque is as long as you can hold a ball and you can throw a ball and you can stand up or sit down or whatever, you can play the game. And it's it's a game that offers versatility for all sexes, all heights, all weights, everything. And there's very few games are like that. Um, I have seen, interestingly enough, I was discussing this yesterday with Becky. She's obviously a teacher, Becky Edwins, as you know, and we discussed indoor ball. Have you ever come across the indoor ball and played with them?
Yeah, so what we have got, so Dean is head of two areas in the school, and I'm the behaviour manager of Key Stage 3. So what we did was we put a bit of money together and bought a set of indoor ball just to see if the students would like it. And quite a few of them did because it was something different. They always moan that it's too hot. They don't want to play badminton or football or basketball and stuff. So this was something for, as you say, for everybody. It's not massively strenuous, and it's not when you first start. It's not actually that difficult. It's only when you get into it that you have to start thinking too much. Um, so we've now purchased. I think we've got like 3 or 4 sets of indoor ball, and a lot of the time, especially during the summer or when the weather's particularly turgid outside, when it's absolutely hammering down, we'll play indoor pétanque and we'll teach them how to play. And we've had quite a few students that are doing BTEC Sport ask if we could go to Gravesend Rugby Football Club and actually try the real game. So we're, there's some risk assessments that go around that, and that's not particularly my part of it, but I obviously will be a part of it in terms of having the knowledge and the skill set to teach them. So hopefully, sort of when we go back to the new academic year, once we settle down, the new students come in and we can start getting them involved properly, and then maybe look at a program moving forward. But yeah, the indoor ball, they're a hit. Sometimes they get a bit bored, so we kind of switch it up. We do like a mini different tournaments. We'll do a little basketball tournament and then a little pétanque tournament, and then we'll find the winner of each one, and they can all face off in the end. So, but they all quite like it, which is good. It's more than what I thought would happen.
Well, it's great because as you have said yourself, you were a little bit wayward when you were younger and you embraced the game and it gave you a focus. And I see this a lot with things like martial arts or swimming or running, especially for myself when I used to do this back in the day, was it gave me a purpose and a mission and a goal. And Petanque can give you that because it gives you the camaraderie and the teams being part of a team
Yeah,
and striving and looking to achieve. And it's an easy game to play, but it's really difficult to be good.
yeah.
So obviously you're very good. So how did you get to be very good? Talk me through that.
Um, it's I'd say it's a bit of luck and a lot of dedication. I was very lucky, as I said before, to come into the family that I did. Not that I automatically got the opportunity to play with them. It was more I just got the opportunity to kind of be around them and learn from them in that way. Um, I actually kind of had to earn my right to be with those sort of players. So, for instance, I played 2 years in Division Two in league to kind of get to a level where I was good enough to play with the Division One team. I mean, back then we had Scott, Roland, Kev, Jack, Sarah, Dean, Chris Peel, Neil Phillips. We had a ridiculously strong team. So for me to get in there just off of being related to a couple of people wasn't a thing. So I had to put in a bit of work. I practiced. I had a year solid pretty much when I was about 16, where I practiced every day for 4 hours. I had a checklist of what I wanted to do, and I just ticked it off in a book. It was on grass. We lived in a chalet where our house was being finished, and yeah, every day 4 hours on the grass, walk the dogs, bring them back, put a corkscrew thing in the ground so they could lay down, and I would just throw a ball, get lost in the world of pétanque. Um, Funny story actually was Roland. I used to message him kind of when I was late teens. Message him, oh, there's a tournament on, a little doubles at Hartley. Do you want to play? And he would say, oh, I think I might already be playing, and then message someone like Matt Horrigan and say, do you want to play? Because I don't know how to tell Jason no, but he's not good enough yet. So, um, I learned that once I was deemed good enough to be, playing with those players. Roland told me, it was all part of character building. It shows that I had the dedication to want to get that good. It gave me a bit of hunger
Mm.
Other people might look at it and go, well, that was a bit harsh, you know, how do you expect to learn? But I think that gave me, you know, different goals because I've always worked off of goals. I've set myself small targets, big targets, and future targets. And that gave me loads of little stepping stones to be like, right, I'm going to get good enough that actually he asked me to play now. And then it kind of works. It coincides with just building yourself up as a player, and you learn a lot from things like that, which I was lucky enough to have. So yeah, I put a lot of time and effort in. I played every tournament I could, practiced as much as I could. Um, so it's still like now, to be honest, it's an obsession for me. Um, but I was lucky that I had the help and the people around me that I did because that mixed with the hard work really gave me a strong fighting chance to be at the top of the game.
It's interesting because hard work is something and practice is something that the majority of players, the hobby players, not there's anything wrong with them, but they will turn up on Sundays and just expect to get better through maybe osmosis or a miracle or changing their grip slightly or whatever it is. But there's no magic cure. There is work. That's it.
Yeah.
Talk me through 4 hours of practice on grass.
So that
Tough surface.
that that kind of kick-started when I had a little bit of a setback. My first year as juniors, I wasn't selected for Monaco, which was the European Championships. Even though sort of results-wise, I'd won pretty much all of the junior tournaments along with Kai Sheffield, who obviously close friend of mine and we played together a lot. Um, there was a bit of a setback there, and it it hit me quite hard. But again, I kind of I'm lucky to have the mentality that I had in the sense that I used that as fuel to not give them any opportunity to give me a no next time. So I used that as instead of oh, what's the point? Like a lot of people would be deflated, and there's nothing wrong with that. I pushed myself to go. I'm going to be the best, so they literally can't say no. It doesn't matter even if whatever they want to do, they can't not take me. So then I was selected for China, and at that time I was a pointer, and they said they wanted me to go to China as a shooter. So I then got a little bit worried and was like, I need to learn how to shoot. So as I say, the chalet, we were lucky enough. We had this massive. It was all concrete pathways, no gravel anywhere, really close, and just grass right outside. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna get a tire, lob into the tire, and practice my lobbing, and just shoot ball. And it was shooting a 6, 7, 8, and 9, ball over ball, half balls, things like that. And it was literally, I would do an hour, 5 minute break, an hour, 5 minute break, an hour, 5 minute break. And yeah, sometimes when Dean got home from work, we'd have a little game on grass. So it was obviously it's not like the real thing, but it did help with the sense that you have to be on the ball. So I actually think that kind of gave me the muscle memory that I needed. Although I'm not definitely not perfect and I don't do it all the time, but you know that repetitive motion of kind of reaching the ball. Sometimes even now we've got a terrain in our garden, and I sometimes just shoot on the grass because I feel like it's a bit flat, or you know. So it gives me again kind of that kick to be like, no, you need to lift the ball, you need to be on it. So yeah, as I say, pétanque for me since I started has been an obsession. So it's never been a question of do I want to practice this? How long do I want to practice for more than anything?
That's Grass is one of those surfaces where people say to me, "Can you play on grass?" And I say, "Well, you can, but it's not ideal." And
Yeah, it's not the
I know
top.
for sure shooting on grass, it just landed boom, straight over the top, and you go, ah, it drives you mad. But tire drills, I'm a massive fan. I've actually got 5 tires in my car that I just drive around with all different sizes and use to work on my own game. I've been playing 40 years now. I'm still working on my game. It's a never-ending process. And what I like, and your little story there reminds me of Michael Jordan, if I can put a similarity there, where he got kicked out by his college team as not being good enough, and he used it as fire, fuel to drive his game to the highest level. It looks, well, it's obvious you're doing exactly the same.
Yeah, yeah. I've just, as I say, because it was such a big thing for me, Petanque, and it's an obsession, and I think also because it was like my whole family were pétanque straight away. As soon as Mum got with Dean and they were married, you had everybody in my entire family that was playing. I couldn't be the one that was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing it. I know that Dean's had his setbacks previously with system changes, and and that affected him in a way. I could see that affected him, and I didn't want that to be me. And luckily, he managed to come through, and is now, I think, 10 times better than what he was. Even with regards to his behaviour and his emotional state in the game. Don't get me wrong; sometimes it can still be petulant, childish. I'll say, just a joke. But no, he's come a long way, and he taught me so many things, and that was one of them. Without actually doing anything, I could see how hurt he was by the opportunities that were taken away from him, and I made sure that I, wouldn't give anyone the opportunity to do that again, or to the best of my ability. I tried my best to do that. But yeah, as I say, I'm really lucky. I've got Dean and I've got Scott who mentored me all the way through setbacks, through highs, and just everything. So it's important to have people around you, and they don't have to be family, but to get yourself in the right group of people that have the same ambitions or similar ambitions is, I think, it's a massive part of achieving what you want to achieve. Because if you've all got different goals, one's happy playing and just having a day out, and one's really, really driven and wants to be the best in Europe, and the other one thinks already they're the best in Europe, then you're going to probably clash. So it's important to have similar goals and similar understanding, because then you can always push each other to where you want to be.
It's interesting because there is a lot of cognitive dissonance, which is a very posh way of saying you think you're great, but you know you're bad. And there's a lot of that in the game where they, you're a great example of you have to have this self-belief, but you have to deliver in order to back up that belief. Whereas there are players who think, maybe I'm one of them, think that they're great and don't necessarily deliver. And I mean, talk to me about your targets and your goals because you've set them very high at a very young age, and I would hazard a guess achieved a lot of them. What was the process for that? What was the driving force apart from wanting to prove others wrong? And what do your future goals look like?
So I had so many small, really achievable goals, because I think it's important psychologically to get small wins. I think if you set yourself targets that are definitely achievable, but ultimately ride on, if you lose one game, you can't reach it, then that can be a really ugly train to be riding for a long time, because we know what the game's like. Anyone can beat anybody, and you could be in a pretty dark place for a while. So I think it's important to give yourself small achievement, or small goals and achievements to follow. So I'd set myself things. If even in league, me and Scott would have little things where we try and count how many ball we've hit, and the person who's hit the most in the league game buys the other one a beer, or just puts. Or we had a thing where every time you double miss a shot, which ideally would never happen, but every time you double miss, you put £1 in a pot, almost like a swear jar. And if you triple missed, it was £5. So we had those little things where kind of drove us. But then I had sort of larger goals. So when I started, I wanted to represent England at championship at junior level. And then obviously Espoirs, I wanted to get there. And there wasn't a large amount of Espoirs when I was playing, which, gave me the opportunity to be in the team every year. However, also to a detriment that, we didn't have them people kind of pushing us to be better. But again, the goals there were, I had a long-term goal of I wanted to medal at championships, because at the time no male had ever done so. And I was lucky enough at in St. Pierre Elizabeth at my second, I think, championship. I managed to beat Tyson Molinas in the Tila Precision in the quarterfinal, which was a remarkable thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever get a feeling like it again. The year before was again a really difficult year, because my first Espoirs, we had a goal of going out, and we had a pretty strong team. We had a lot of belief in each other. We'd done a lot of work to it, and we went out and we actually lost every game. I had a bit of bad news delivered to me there that my nan had passed away just before we started the Swiss games, which obviously isn't the best news to receive after just losing the shooting by 1 point for a medal as well. But it's we lost every game, and I remember the the sense of, I don't know, like togetherness that the squad had. The juniors were there, and the female Espoirs were there, and I remember that sense of togetherness during that tough time. And I put a post on Facebook. I can't remember exactly what it said, but you know, having the right people around you is key. And that was one of my goals. Then from then on, I wanted to be with people that I knew would be there through the tough, through the good, the bad, the ugly. Um, so yeah, like goals, small goals to win tournaments, small goals for progression, bigger goals in terms of medaling at championships. And I still have goals now that I want to be. I think my biggest goal, and it's achievable, but maybe a kind of 1% possibility. But there's always a possibility in my mind. Is that I want to become. I'm going to go European champion because I feel like world champion's a little bit fast. Anything can happen, but um, I think if you don't have a goal like that, then what's the point? Because ultimately, we're all striving to be the best. I think if you're at the top end of the game and you want to play competitively, then yeah. So I'd like to be a European or world champion, but that's the one that's way off in the horizon. And if I don't get there, I'm not going to be upset as long as I do everything I can to make sure I give myself the best opportunity to get there. Upcoming ones, I want to qualify for senior worlds. I've not done that. Well, I have done that, but the rules were changed by PE and they took another team, even though we won't get into that.
We won't get into that.
But
Politics of best
but yeah,
left. Politics and religion. No, 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 no.
so yeah, we unfortunately, yeah, that happened. So missed out on that. Obviously, I've got the world doubles, singles, and mixed doubles coming up in Rome in September. But for me, Petanque is, the heart of the game is triples, and I'd love to qualify for a world triples with my team. That would be that's like the next big goal for me. Having not done it yet, that's the one I'm really striving for. And then from then, that next one will give me an opportunity to think of what's the next goal that I want to achieve. That's close enough to that I can get there. But yeah, just I'll try and make it as achievable as possible while still having to reach for it, if that makes sense. Because small wins in the middle, but the big goal is not one that I'm constantly chasing. It's one that I'm not far away from if I put the effort in.
Have you got a time scale attached to those
Um,
that you'd like to share without? It doesn't matter if you do, but you don't want to share it, that's fine.
no, I'm not.
I often find that a time scale is good because it focuses the mind and
Yeah,
drives things, and you manifest the things that you dream about.
obviously sooner rather than later. I think because you never. I don't want to get too deep here, but you can't guarantee anything in life. So the people I play with, Roland and that, they've played for a very long time, and anything can happen. Injuries or we see it so many times. People who love the game just walk away from it because they don't want to put in the effort. They've got families now, or they've got so sooner rather than later. But I don't put a time pressure on it because I feel like then I get myself in a mindset of like, oh, you've let yourself down, and then I go kind of the other way. I know for a lot of people that might give them a little bit more drive and a little bit more push, but I feel like I've kind of got that drive and push already. And I
Interesting.
kind of go the other way in the sense of if I don't achieve it, well, I get a little bit like not down and I don't give up, but like I get quite angry with myself and I feel like it's my fault and I've let people down. And because I've been thinking I need to do it now. So I try and avoid that thought process. But I still would rather sooner rather than later because I think also one of Dean's favourite sayings, and I think it's true as anything, is winning breeds winning. Whether it's a 6-team tournament, an 8-team tournament, or a 100-team tournament, if you're winning things, it breeds confidence and it breeds winning because winning is not necessarily the better team. You don't always have to be the better team to win. Anything can happen, anyone can win. So if you can make that a skill when you can win while playing not at your best, then you're already 20-30% above everyone else because they have to be at their best, if that makes sense.
It's
Um,
interesting. It reminds me of the film, if I recall, White Men Can't Jump. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen it.
The
West United.
lady, she says, sometimes when you lose, you win, and sometimes when you win, you actually lose, and sometimes when you win, you may win, but you actually lose, and it all got very
Yeah,
complicated. But it was a really fun way of saying, and Hervey and I discussed it a couple of days ago when he talks about winning ugly, and I many a time I've won a game or a tournament, and I think, and I'm actually upset because I think we won by a luck or indecision or a wrong decision or something happened or the cochonnet moved and you don't come away feeling rewarded even though you got a trophy and some money. It's or you've made a mistake and it's come off. It's
yeah,
different.
yeah. No, I get that feeling a lot, and I think I'm not gonna sit here and say yeah, I win every tournament because I'm the best player. I win tournaments because I have this knack, or I've managed to build this knack of when I'm not playing particularly well. For me, I'm a believer of you don't practice to be good. When you're at a level, you practice to stay loose, but ultimately, all of your practice dials down to one moment, and it might be one moment in a day, it might be one moment in a tournament in 3 months, and it's that time where you have to make that ball count. Like it doesn't matter how bad you're playing, if you have to make it count at that key moment, no matter how it happens. There are certain players in the world scene. I mean, there's loads of them, but in the UK, there's obviously a lot fewer. That in that moment, they find a way to make it happen because that's that one moment that the whole game rides on. And Phil Bradshaw always says it's the X Factor ball. That it could be the first game of the day where it's a bit ugly, and he goes, "That ball, that's the X Factor ball. That's going to win us the day." And that's like manifestation of actually maybe he's right. We've got over the line on the 12-12 and I've played like a drain, but actually I've made that one ball count or move that cosh that little bit, and then we go on and win the day. And it's like, oh, it might not be anything to do with that, but subconsciously it gives you that belief and that uplift that I don't have to play well sometimes. My teammate can get me through and I can do the big moments well, and that's enough. Like,
It's interesting because me talking to you now, things that come to mind is the teamwork. Obviously, you've got a very established team, and Kent is a fantastic region with lots of incredible players who've played at the highest level. But then you're on your own in tir de precision against Tyson Molinas, arguably one of the finest shooters in France, and certainly one of the best juniors and Espoirs, and now a senior. So, explain to me the difference from you're in the circle and you've got a team, and they're obviously behind you, and then there's a coach. But then I'm really interested in the thoughts and the feelings and the fears and the voices on your shoulder, one good, one bad. Well, talk me through how you developed the strengths of mind and character to beat Tyson. Just, I'm really interested in that.
so I'm lucky enough to have done the Theatre Precision now, like up to date now, quite a few times at championships. So it's once you've done it, like anything, once you've done it a few times, you kind of get more comfortable. Um, Scott, Roland, Dean, all of them always say to me, I'm like, I've got like the most unique self confidence ever because a lot of people, when they go to the Theatre Precision, if it goes wrong, it's affected them in the tournament. They haven't wanted to shoot, or, you know, for me, the way I see the Theatre Precision is that's my opportunity to show off, showcase what I can do, but I'm there for the triples. So regardless of what the outcome is, I'm there to represent England at a European or World Triples Championships. This is my chance to do something on my own and be selfish and take a bit of accreditation for me. If it doesn't happen, once it's done, there's a 10-minute window where I'm disappointed with myself, and then I move on to the tournament, and it's completely different. I can separate the two. Um, Scott having done it, Roland having done it, have said that they kind of a little bit envious of the fact that I can kind of separate that because a lot of people it has that like that horrible, and I think it's natural. Like once because there is still a sense of if you don't do very well, you're on. There's a lot of people watching. Um, but one of the best things I heard from anyone. I mean, Scott's got the record of any English player. He done it in Madagascar and got 41, and was in the top eight. But I beat Rizzy's score, and you know, Kev. Spillett in his team said to Scott, Scott was like, oh, I'm shooting next to Izzy. And he said, well, that's perfect. He said, no one's watching you then. They're all watching him. So don't worry about what you put down there because no one cares. And when I shot against Tyson, there's a guy called Stéphane Perrin from Saint-Omer in France who was helping out the Espoirs and Colin and all of that. And I said to him, obviously I've got Tyson. He said, great. I said, what do you mean great? And he said, well, again, no one expects you to do anything. He doesn't. So whatever you do, whether you're like, if you're bad, he expects you to be bad. So, and I said, well, do I go first or do I go second? He said, it doesn't matter. He said, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Do you want to chase him hitting a carrot or do you want him chasing you hitting a carrot? Because he's probably going to do it regardless. And that stuck with me. So I went first and tried to set the tone and managed to keep the lead for a long way through. But yeah, as I say, I'm lucky enough to have done it enough times now, and I've got this unique ability to be able to separate the tir de precision and the triples. And when I face anyone that's an elite player of world pétanque, I don't see it as, oh my God, I'm playing Tyson. I see it as, this is my opportunity to beat Tyson. This is my one chance. I might not get another one. And don't get me wrong, we played Armenia at the Europeans and Michel Hachidorian was playing, and I'm still convinced that game didn't happen. We got absolutely slaughtered. I tell everyone, they say, oh, what happened against Armenia? We didn't play Armenia. But, for me, I don't
Goodbye for them.
yeah, I don't ever play the player. I play the opportunity to beat them. Like, I play the game of pétanque and this is my chance. A lot of people see it as, oh, we get Russia, we'll be happy to get a couple of points. Well, I see it as, we've got Russia. This is my chance to make history. And it's paid off a couple of times, and other times I've walked away thinking, maybe I'm nowhere near the level I thought I was. But it's a way of never walking away disappointed because one, I don't expect to beat them, but if I do, that's amazing. Yeah.
Reminds me when I was younger, when I first started in the early 80s, Norfolk Square were just obliterating everyone. And I got absolutely battered every tournament. And I remember going to France and getting battered week after week by 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds. And it was that learning process of learning how to lose. But then I came back with this determination, this will to win, this, okay, I've now learned how to lose. How am I going to learn how to win? And that's why I had to take my game to higher levels. But the one time I beat Norfolk Square, myself, my opinion of myself went from here to here. And then I did it again and it went even further. And then I did it again. And then eventually it was, they were asking me to play with them. And I think obviously this is for you a very, very similar thing. You've gone in there, you've gone into the arena and you've held your emotions and your doubts if you had any, and you've manifested and forced yourself through sheer force of will to achieve. And that's remarkable. So, well done.
Thank you.
Well done for that. I expect great things in the future from
So
you.
do I. A lot of pressure on myself, but we.
Well, self-pressure is interesting because I'm really curious about how there's something I talk about a lot, but when you've thrown a ball, you can do nothing about it. You can't do anything about past balls. You can't do anything about future balls. You can only concentrate on the ball you have in your hand at that moment. How do you let go of the last ball and how do you not worry about the next ball?
To be honest, I got taught, and this is genuine. I'll quote it. I get told by Scott and Roland all the time. I don't have enough brain capacity to think. They're the two brains in the team. My job is to be a machine and just hit ball, and let them worry about anything else. And I went through a period of time where I used to chew their ears off, more so Roland. And he sat me down and said to me, you're making it almost impossible to play with you. I can't even focus on me because I'm having to worry about you. And at that point, that was it. That was the click for me of, oh, I actually do need to just be brainless. It doesn't matter if I miss or hit. It's just I need to do the best I can do, and not and just make sure I'm giving them the platform to do what they need to do as the kind of driving force of the team. Now that obviously maybe had a negative effect when I kind of first started leading teams in terms of playing with different people, but I learned quite quickly how to do that because I think it comes quite naturally, once you get out of that mindset of, you do know the game. And a lot of the time we joke about how I'm like hyper aggressive. Sometimes I want to take three shots on to bring one in, and because I genuinely have a belief that I'm going to make carrows on them. But they kind of rein me in and say you have to look about how the game's gone. You've hit 50% with a 50% carrow rate. You're not going to make three carrows in terms of averages. So just point that sort of.
Yeah.
But yeah, genuinely, it's. I've been told to be brainless. Um, think of myself as a machine, and all I have to worry about is throwing the current ball, and then the next one. That's it.
I often say shooting is sometimes the easiest part of the game because you're just throwing a ball onto a ball. You don't have to worry about terrain. You don't have to worry about spin effectively, unless there's a little bit of backspin. You just, you can do it with a short backspin, a long backspin, a long follow through. It's just throwing a ball onto a ball. It's, yeah.
I think shooting's a very lonely place because it can sometimes be the easiest place ever, and it can also be that person who it's really tough because being a shooter, if your pointer doesn't get there, there's four balls to come. Whereas if your shooter double misses, you've only got four balls to come, and that's kind of the way it's. I think I, part of me believes shooting's one of the easiest positions because, and a lot of me thinks the middle's the hardest. But actually, I think in some respects, if you don't have the right mental approach, I think shooting's probably the hardest because I think with pointing there's variables. You can throw a bad ball, hit a stone, and get a bad bounce, but you can also get a bounce onto the cosh. You can also flick the cosh. You can also do anything. Whereas shooting is pretty much give or take hit or miss. You either hit it or you don't. And obviously you can carry the wrong ball and things, but the harsh reality of it is you either miss your shot or you hit your shot. And that can be a really tough place to be in or the best place ever because you walk around feeling like, you're the king and, oh, look at me, I've just hit another carrot. But other times it can be, oh, we're playing against Jason and, we'll be happy to get some points. And then you chuck five misses in a row down there and you're like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
Like it's a very contradicting area to be in, I would say. It's quite tough. But as you say, I'm lucky enough I got taught to just don't think, just throw your ball and don't worry about it, let us deal with it. So yeah.
It's a very valuable tip, and I'm glad I asked the question. So, in terms of your playing style, obviously that's part of it, and that's obviously evolved over time. Did you, with your shooting, if we just concentrate on your shooting, because everybody now knows you as a shooter rather than a pointer, even though you can point incredibly well. How has your style evolved, and did you model it over anyone, or was it just something that happened naturally?
When you say style, do you mean like approach to the game or my actual like technique?
Technique in terms of shooting. Because
So
some people are low and hard, some people loads of backspin. You look at Rocher with his twisted up ways, and
all over the place, yeah.
yeah, other people like Choupé, huge backswing, beautiful lob coming down, crashing onto the ball. Pazzo, really short, really hard. Everyone is slightly different, but you have your own style. For my opinion, very relaxed, very gentle, very slow arm speed with a nice slow release that's very controlled. That's my impression of your shooting style. I'd like to have your thoughts on it.
So I started with like quite possibly the ugliest technique ever. I used to kind of bend at a 90-degree angle and put my arm as high as I could and sling it out at 100 miles an hour. I then spoke to Sophie and Lachani, who told me a couple of tips to get the chest, like he said, almost think of it like football, put your chest over the ball, stand a bit wider. That's what they get taught in Algeria and stuff. And I tried that for a little while and it was very strange. I had my feet literally as wide as they could be on the circle. And then I'm a bit of a pétanque nerd. Like I used to watch pétanque religiously. If it was a choice of watching something on the TV or watching the Masters, I would watch the Masters and I'd rewatch the same game over and over and over. And I would try and depict different parts from different techniques because I know for me, if I was to try and imitate Roche's technique, for instance, I wouldn't be anywhere, it wouldn't work because I don't put in the hours that he's put in to make it work. But actually, the last part of his release, that tiny bit push on the end, is perfect. So that part I need to implement with what other people do that looks better or easier. that my body can kind of do. And yeah, over time, I mean, Scott told me that the wide technique was like the worst thing I could be doing because I'm literally going round my body, and you're not going to get the consistent sort of release. So I literally stripped it back, stood where felt comfortable, put my arm as comfortable as it could go, and went from there. And a lot of the time, I'd video myself if I was missing left, right, religiously to the same side. I would video myself and look at, okay, what am I doing different here to what I did last time? Or I'd watch streams of myself and go, right, this game I hit 80% and that game I hit zero. What have I done different? And a lot of the time, it can be I'm gripping the ball too tight. It can be I'm, bending my wrist too far back, or my arm's not going far enough back. But they're all things like self-analysis sort of thing. Watch it and make sure that you're trying to do the same thing every time, because that's how you get the best result. If you're trying to perfect the same thing, it's a lot easier than doing 5 or 6 different things. So yeah, but again, they're all things that I got taught by Scott, Dean, Roland, and I just took it all in and videoed and watched other people and just tried to imitate what I thought was the better throws and the better releases and everything, and try and make it into what I can do all in one. Oh yeah.
It's interesting because I've had a saying in my mind that I use, which is perfect for this particular situation, that an amateur, as in a fun player, that they will practice until they can do it right. But a professional, and I would class you in that, you practice until you can't do it wrong. There is a difference in the two, and not everybody gets that. So, a couple of other things. I think this is very important for me, and I hope for others. Teamwork. Obviously, you've talked about the great relationship you have with Scott, with Roland, with the whole Kent. It's very important for you. I've found in games, teams that stick together tend to stay around and do very, very well. And you've had a very stable team for a number of years. Talk me through how important that is for you in terms of pitch
Um,
presence, in terms of do you find that you win just turning up because people are like, oh no, we've got Jason?
so this is something we talk about a lot, and something that we often come to disagreements about, but we're kind of coming to the same consensus. There are many tournaments and many games that we've played where we turn up and people go, well, we'll be happy to get a point. And at that point, in my mind, and this sounds terrible, but in my mind, I've already won the game. So I can kind of, but as a team, I think going to the European Championships. I mean, we had Tim Edwins as our coach, and a lot of people had questions around that. Is he going to be able to give you anything tactically? Is he? And for us, I think the first thing we looked at, well, we have quite possibly what would be the two best qualified coaches we could have for us in Scott and Rowland. And the reality of it is Dean's our pointer, I'm our shooter, and those two will play the middle and can do anything. But if all's going well, one of those will be on the side at all times. So it was a case of, Tim being someone who we trust and who knows our game. And if he's finished playing or is out of a tournament or anything, will watch us, stream us. So he knew us. But actually having a trust and belief in everybody in your team is massively important. If I'm playing with someone that I know has a lot of self-doubt, or I know is a bit mentally weak, or then you start worrying about them rather than focusing on what you're doing. And yeah, I think our group of players, me, Dean, Scott, Roland, Kai now is on his way up. Still needs to work on the mental side of things, but ability wise is
One of the best.
He's
Yeah.
been incredible. Like over the last sort of 6 to 9 months, it's a massive part that people don't. And I used to neglect it a lot. I never used to really think about it, but you can see it almost clear as day when you look at the results of teams. So Baldock, when they were qualifying for the Euro Cup every year, they had their team, and that was all the core group of players, the same people. I think there was 4 or 5 years in a row where Jack, Scott, Roland, and Kev Spillett went to championships together, and they weren't always the best team. They didn't always perform the best, but they managed to win because they were a team. And having the understanding of your players and having someone. I think sometimes the hardest thing is having someone who's actually happy to tell you how it is. So a lot of the time, without even purposely doing it, your ego can get in the way and you can feel like you're playing all right. But actually, the outsider saying, "Look, you're not doing it, mate. You need to come out." That having that trust in that person makes it a lot easier to take than if you don't trust that person. You're like, well, they're just trying to take my spot. They just want the glory. Having someone that's there that you trust, that's like, okay, yeah, no, they actually see something that I don't. Makes a lot of sense. Let's change it. Let's do something. And it's massively, massively important. It's helped me having the team that I have. I couldn't be any more thankful than what I am for it because, as I say, it's helped me get to where I am today.
Mm. So, what do you value most in your teammates?
I think I think there's so many things. We're all driven. We've all got similar goals. We all want to travel and we all want to be the best. So we don't want to necessarily keep playing local tournaments, which is affecting entries. Like we had an AGM in Kent that players said, they don't turn up because the same people win it all the time, which that's a whole different kettle of fish. But we've said as a group of players, we're looking at having a year or two together where we play all the opens and we put all the cash in a pot, and then we have a year where we play the nationals in England and we use all that money in that pot to go abroad and play in Calais instead of driving up to Leicester for what might be a 16 to 18 team tournament. We get on the. We're lucky enough we're only about half hour away from the Eurostar.
Yeah.
We go to Calais and we play a tournament in northern France, and that the drive I think is the thing. We've as a group of players we all want to be the best, but we all want to be the best together. And I think there's a difference. I think sometimes if you've got individuals that want to be the best player, that can cause a clash. And we all want to be the best, but we want to be the best team, not best individuals at what we do. So that thing, and again, the trust. I come back to trust. I think having trust in each other and the belief, the honest belief that we're going to do something is massively important as well.
Interesting. Now, it sort of leads me on to, another aspect of the game that is not necessarily discussed as much as it could be. Obviously, team cohesion is one thing. The fact that there's no I in team is another another big one as well. But and obviously we discussed what you look for and value most in a teammate, but equally what there are egos in the game, and to a certain degree, shooters have to have a high ego in order to perform and do what they're good at, and there can be good and bad things with that. But do you see any detriments within the game that you think, certain players could maybe, like you said with yourself, you adapted your attitude and you changed certain parts of yourself and you're still dealing with them, and you said you get a little bit angry or a bit frustrated or you're letting other people down, and is there any other things that you see that are prevalent, if we just said in the UK game?
Yeah, massively. And I think I'm guilty of it. I think a lot of people would look at me. Some people say not when I say it, but a lot of people would look at me and say that I'm arrogant. I really try my best not to be, but the honest answer is I do have a really high level of self confidence, and that sometimes can seep out in a different way. And I genuinely never mean it to, unless I'm having a bit of banter with my teammates or my friends, or you know. But I think there's been times where players criticise players that have been to championships that either have never been there themselves or are sitting there maybe jealous, maybe a little bit, I should be there, and they put on Facebook and on streams, oh, you should have done this, and if I was there, I would have done that, and blah blah blah, and those sort of things. I think the biggest problem in our country is that not many people, and I'll say not many because I'm quite patriotic. I always want England to do well at championships because I hate the disrespect we get, and I'm sure we'll come on to that in a different question. But the always want England to do well, and I know for a fact that there's players that if certain teams go away, they want them to do badly because either they want to be there, they don't like the individuals, and it never really feels like the whole country's on your back in a positive way. It feels like half the country's on your back in a positive way, and the other half are not really that bothered.
More
You
resentful. Yeah.
Yeah, like you could do something amazing and they don't really care, or you could do terrible and they're the first ones on the bandwagon to be like, well, they shouldn't get another chance, or what an embarrassing performance, or blah, So I think there's a lot of players that have huge egos, and sometimes it works for them, and other times it's a detriment. And again, people might put me in that bracket, and I think you're right. I think as a shooter, mainly, you have to carry yourself with some kind of ego. I know Philippe Forner, who was the Belgian coach for a long time, come over and supported the juniors and Espoirs, and he said to me once in very broken English that I have to have more character. He said, you're too nice. He said, people don't believe you're a top player, and you are. He said, now there's a difference between being really arrogant, but you have to have a little bit, because if you don't believe it and you don't look like you believe it, no one else will. So that kind of stuck with me. But I think there's some people that maybe are a bit over the top, or even just a little bit disrespectful. I always try and give as much time to anyone in the game. If they talk to me, I always try and be polite. I know of some people, and I'm not going to name them, that just wouldn't even give them the time of day. They kind of ask them questions, and oh yeah, I'll come back in a minute, and just never do.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's after a game and you ask me questions, I'm more than happy to answer them and give you tips. Or we had a message today actually from a club in Kent that we had seen play, and they asked us loads of questions, and they messaged me and Dean and said, would you mind coming down and doing a little bit of coaching with us, just to help the new players understand? And we've done that so many times. We've had like junior scouts and stuff, groups of 80 kids come over from the scouts, and we've done that. So yeah, I think there are egos in the game in the UK, and I think some of them are detrimental. But I think the main thing is the resentful kind of behaviour and attitude towards other teams when they go away is probably my biggest bugbear, I would say.
Yeah. It's an interesting one because there's good sayings that, like in Texas, if you've done it, it's not bragging, is a very big saying in Texas. But braggadocious, if that's the right word, I don't know. It is, there's a very, very fine line between arrogance and knowing how good you are. And as you rightly say, some people have an arrogance and maybe an expectation of themselves, and maybe that they think their game is better than it actually is. And maybe they need to have that. But to do the crabs in the bucket thing and drag people down, that I don't necessarily agree with some of that. And it is prevalent in the UK. We love to big up the underdog, and then when they get there, yeah, come back down here. So, um, couple of things. France, 100% go there. I go to France a lot. I've got a French license. I play in Cherbourg. Go there with Steve a lot. The game is very, very different. Calais got huge indoor place. I highly recommend going. Join us. Come to Cherbourg. It's a great thing. Um, what life lessons has Petanque taught you? I'm really interested.
The main one for me is that if, like, and this is the most, I think probably the most basic one. If you believe it, you can achieve it. Like if you actually put the effort in, you can do whatever you want to do. And now that's in petanque terms. Obviously, if you want to be able to fly, you're not going to be able to fly unless you can create some sort of flight suit. But in the game, I don't think anything is unachievable. I think if you it's very much one of those that you get out of it what you put in. In terms of foot, like if you compare it to football, I know it's like less than 1% of footballers make it to the Premier League. Whereas petanque, you can get to the equivalent of the Premier League if you really, really put the time and effort in. And if you don't want to do that and you're happy where you're at, you can get to whatever level you want, for the most part, let's say. I think for me, yeah, it's if you work hard enough, you can get to where you want to be. obviously there's loads. I mean, loads. It, it kind of taught me to be like almost like a better person. Like teaches you respect, like the way you treat people and the way you carry yourself, and especially when you first put on that England shirt. I dare say that there's people that put it on and then think, right, I've made it. Like I'm too good for these now, and I'm an England player. And for me, I've put on an England shirt, and now I've got the weight of the nation, like that for me. And Roland and Scott will joke about it, but when I genuinely the feeling I feel when I put on the England shirt is this is the biggest thing I could do because I'm representing my country and I've got the weight of England here on the back of my t-shirt now, and I'm the person that's made it here. So like that kind of, I don't know, the belief it gives you is unreal. Like it's so difficult to explain, and everybody's different. But like the pride and the belief it gives you is second to none.
I think for me, I 100% agree with you. I think the England shirt, for example, when it was Great Britain pétanque, when it was, you had a GB shirt. Now England shirts seem to be given out like, oh, we're going off on a tour. Here you go. Have it. Here's an England shirt. Oh, we're playing home nations. Here you go. Here's an England shirt. It's almost dilutes it, and maybe they need to change the terminology of it to make it Team England or just something just to add an extra prestige than just someone who can just chuck a badge on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
It's that's just my opinion, and
No,
it's a
no,
little bit controversial, but
I
that's
think
me.
you're probably right because I think all levels and abilities should be celebrated, and I don't think
Yeah.
there's nobody that's not good enough to be anywhere. But like any sport, there are levels that people reach, and they deserve their opportunities at their respective levels. I love playing the home nations. I think that the home nations is my way of. It sounds really silly, but enjoying pétanque for pétanque, not being ultra focused, not having to worry about performing always at the highest level and having to win. Like obviously, I still want to win, but that sounds really silly. But like, it's my way of having fun. I play with people that I wouldn't necessarily play with in other tournaments because it's always in preparation for Europeans or nationals and things like that. So, and there are people that I love to pieces that have managed to get an English shirt at home nation level, and that's been the proudest moment in their life. And I think that that should be celebrated in its own right. I don't think
Oh,
it
I
should
fully agree. I
be
just
celebrated.
mean the tours and the
Yeah,
holidays.
this is what I mean. I think that
That's
those things should be they should be individualized because actually, if you get a home nation shirt, that's to be celebrated because you've qualified for home nations.
yeah,
So you've got your home nation shirt. It should be different to you've got your European and World Championship shirt. It
exactly.
should be different to you're on a tour and you've got that shirt, and they should all be celebrated, but in their own individual ways, not just like you said. Here's an English shirt. See you later on. Like,
Yeah, because a tour shirt is I can afford to go on a holiday. I can afford to buy a shirt, not necessarily through merit, but that's for another thing for another conversation. So, I just want to return back to one of the things that you mentioned earlier. It's I'm just trying to find my notes on it as well. It was a controversial thing that you said you would come back to. I think we were talking about the worlds and the preference. Maybe we'll do it another time. Okay, couple of quick fire things. I noticed your cap,
yeah,
Boudica. Now I know that you are heavily involved in promoting their ball. I have to admit, I am not au fait with their ball. I've seen you playing with them for a couple of seasons, maybe longer. Tell me about the brand. Tell me what's going on there. Tell the listeners and the viewers, all about Odika. What makes them a great ball?
yeah. So I first, so I was with Decathlon. I was sponsored by Decathlon for about 3 or 4 years, and that come to an end due to sort of funding issues and because pétanque really isn't a massive sport in the UK. It was actually being funded from a store in France, like the French side. So once their funding was kind of being taken away, it was really difficult for them to kind of get rid of Simon Cortez and people like that and keep myself. So no animosity there, and it was kind of reaching out to different companies, and I saw I went to a tournament in Spain in December last year and saw sort of the ODK and Odeka, and I'd seen them around, and Roland had said to me about them a few times, and so I sent an email and said, I'm really interested in sort of representing your brand. There's a couple of Spanish players that and Belgian and German players that I've seen that I know of, not know them, but I know of. I've seen them around quite a few times, and so I sent them an email and said, I'd love to promote your brand in the UK. I play everything. I travel a lot, and I was lucky enough that they gave me the opportunity to become an ambassador in the pre-selection phase for 2026. So that basically means I'm basically a promoter for them at the moment, with the option of joining Team Odeka if things go to plan. But yeah, it's it's great. It's a really nice brand. It's not massively priced. It's a reasonable price for what it is. Obviously, you have to pay the shipping tax, etc. With regards to the ball, I always said that my favourite set of ball were Oba RCX because they were the first. I qualified for the juniors with a set of Integrales, I think, and they were size 75, way too big for my hands.
Yeah.
So when I qualified for the Worlds, my hand size is like 72.
Yeah.
So I went down to a set of 73s, and Dean and Mum said if I managed to get into the team for the Worlds, then they'll buy me a set of ball. And for a long time, I said they were my favourite, and I never found a set of ball that matched them really. All the ball that I've had have been fine. Decathlon ball were fine, but they really stood out. And I didn't think I'd really find anything until I found these. And when I first got them, I'll be completely honest, the coating on them was different to what anything I'd felt before. They were really had a lot of grip to them, which they kind of looked like they'd be really slippery, but they had an immense amount of grip. And Kai bought a set of the carbon ones, so I've got the inox and he's got the carbon, and he said the same. Normally, with the carbon coating on the ball, they're quite slippery in the dust, and he said, his ball are really grippy, and it took me a little while to get used to because I play with a lot of backspin and it was coming out a little bit lower than usual. But that coating comes off, and I can't fault them. And I pride myself on being honest. I would say if they weren't very good, I know I probably shouldn't, but I would say, and I really do think that these could match what the RCX did. They've got a little bit of time to go. So I've had these for a season now. The RCX I had for about 5 years and achieved things that I never thought I would achieve in the game. So they hold a bit of sentimental value, but in terms of feel and sort of the way they react and all of that, they really are the closest thing I've ever had to that. And I would say now are probably just edging past the RCX in the sense that they've definitely got a better grip to them. And I'm starting to notice things a lot more, as you say, when you play the game a lot longer, you start to notice small, like slight differences, how much they screw back, how much they kick on a point, and it might be subconscious, it might be nothing, but the way I've played with these ball over the last sort of season and a half, I can really notice that these are a really good set. And Kai has said the same, and I've had friends, Simon Doble, who's bought a set, and he said, he's really happy with them, and I've not yet, touch wood, there's not been a bad review. So
So
anyone who's
how do people get hold of this set? Is there a special code that they use? Is it how do we help you?
so yeah, my part in it basically, if you go to Odeka's website, so if you type in Odeka Petanque, and then go on their website, I would translate it to English, unless you can speak French, because it's quite difficult to navigate around. They have two sets of their own ball, but they also promote a lot of Oba ball as well. So their ball they've got the carbon Zeus and they've got the inox Zeus. So I've got the inox and Guy's got the carbon, and they I can't remember exactly the price, but basically I have a promotional code, which is PSOWJ, and that will give you 15% off of your order. But that's not just for the ball. They've got rucksacks with ball compartments. They've got just smaller ball bag. They've got gilets, jackets, t-shirts, caps, as you can see. They've got sort of everything you'd need, accessory-wise, clothing-wise, and their ball. And yeah, if you use that code PSOWJ, that will give you 15% off your orders, which usually, from my experience, will cover the shipping tax, which can be quite expensive. So you do save yourself a fair amount of money using it. So yeah.
That's our wonderful government with the shipping tax. That's another story. So, thank you for that. Look, you've given me some great insights. I didn't know much about the brand, and now I feel I do. And I certainly didn't know that they did all those extra accessories and apparel and everything. I'm going to check them out myself. So, um, couple of quick fire things between you and me. Secret tip, which you'd share with me that maybe something you don't share with others that you've kept quietly to yourself that you
I
think
think I might have this written down. Let me just.
might help with maybe with my game or with someone else who has got to this far in the interview where it would blow them away.
I think it's more of a saying that I don't know whether, to be honest with you, I can't remember if I heard it or if I just made it up. Um, but it really is quite powerful. And I said it to a friend of mine when I was over in Jersey at a tournament. And I'll get it exactly right. Hold on. So my thing is, there's a difference between being a pétanque player and playing pétanque. And when you're trying to find your place in pétanque, and I think a lot of people struggle with that, whether you are wanting to be an elite player and put in the levels of commitment that you have to, or whether you want to be a leisure player, or whether you want to be that player, who's always had the ability but could win a tournament and blow people away, or could also be nowhere to be seen. Um, and also, when you're at that, whatever level you're at, differentiating, at the time, today, am I having fun? Am I playing pétanque, or am I a pétanque player? And am I taking this massively seriously and, kind of locking my brain into focus mode? And for me, when you look at that and take some time and think about it, it really does help you find your place in where you want to be, or where you can be. And a lot of people might kind of hear that and think there's no difference. You're a pétanque player or you're playing pétanque, but to me personally, that's there's a big difference in that. And another one for me is don't be scared to win. Like that is, I remember saying it to a few of the juniors that went away a couple of years ago. A lot of people will come up against France or Belgium, and many times we've gone abroad and we've been in a position to beat them, and yet almost every time we lose. And I think a lot of it comes down to a fear of, oh my god, we're going to beat France or we're going to beat these, and it's not necessarily like a sort of shaking in your boots fear, but it is that kind of like, oh Christ, this is actually my chance to do this, and then it kind of falls from there. And yeah, don't. My two things are: don't be afraid to win, always give it 100% because you can beat anyone, and yeah, you find out whether you're playing pétanque or you want to be a pétanque player.
I'll give you an interesting insight on just that. Anxiety and excitement, they set off the same chemicals, the same things in the body. You've got to understand which is which.
Yeah,
When you get to the stage of, I can win this tournament, everything's tingling. I could beat whatever French player. I could hit this. I could get a carol. I could win a medal. Knowing the difference between anxiety, but they're very, very similar, but they are different. So,
yeah. I remember once I played in a tournament in Hedibo in Denmark, and myself and Greg Davenport got to the final with the doubles, and there was I can't remember exactly how many teams, either 180 or 280, something like that. Really, really high level tournament, and we had beaten established players. Noel Kempeneers he was playing for Holland at the time, but he's Belgian. We'd beaten um, a couple of the Danish players, and we'd performed extremely well. And something that haunts me to this day, and I'll come on to that one because that's like the last ball of the game. But before the final came, and after we had beaten Noel, we'd actually managed to fanny them in free ends, which was remarkable. And at this time, I was fresh out of juniors. I was pointing for Greg, even though I was a shooter, and it was kind of a last minute thing. I was supposed to be playing with Tracy Spillett, and Greg was supposed to be playing with Kevin. It was all kind of thing, but we had a remarkable day. And one thing Christian from Hadibo said to me was, F off. And I was like, what do you mean? And he went, no, like go away from the tonk for a minute. He said, you've just had probably one of the best results of your life, and you've got a final coming up. The worst thing you could do right now is sit by the pitch and watch. You're filled with excitement and anxiety and all these different things. Go and take 10 minutes. Go for a walk, take a breather, think about anything else other than pétanque and reset your mind. And I did that and I went away and come back. And unfortunately, we lost. We lost the final 13-12, and it was my fault. I had two shots, basically, a carrow and a hit for game. And I carried the first one after not having a shot all game and then rushed into the circle with the next one, had a hooky, took our own ball out, and we lost. And it, that
Oh, I shouldn't
honestly,
laugh. I shouldn't
no,
laugh.
no, no. And like the look, so we've got a lot of friends from Denmark, and Lasse was playing with someone from Sweden called Robert, and the look on Lasse's face when I done it, I mean, they were down in the dumps, and then the look of shock haunts me still. I can still see, like, if I think about it, I can still see the way he looked and the feeling of, the disappointment. But again, it was a remarkable thing to be there. Not, I'm not a pointer, I'm an out and out shooter at that point, and I'm last minute team with Greg, who is a phenomenal player at times. To achieve that and then to blow that away, the mix of emotions and everything. But that thing of go away for a minute and just take yourself away from the game. You've achieved something great. Go away. Just let it settle before you do anything stupid. Um, that was massive for me as well. I think that's something I'll take for forever. I think
So would you say that was your proudest moment or your most memorable shot? In a bad way? Have you got a particular shot that you could relive as if it was yesterday and describe it for me?
I've got a few. That's probably the worst one in a negative way. That's one that will live with me forever. I've got hitting the cosh to beat Tyson was I didn't even know what was going on. I try not to count points anyway. And the coach at the time was Simon Bird, and he said to me, "Oh, this one's a win then." And I said, 7 meter cosh. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, if you hit this, he needs 10, and no, he needs 11. He can only get 10." And I remember saying to him, "I'm going to go and smash this out. Like this is my time, my chance." And hitting that and walking that, like you can see a picture of the screenshot of when I've managed to do it, and I'm sort of walking down the pitch, fist pumping, and everybody from the England team is like on their feet, jumping around, arms are up in the air, screaming, and that was that was amazing. I think then we had a year of COVID, and then I went to the Espoirs in I can't even remember it in Spain somewhere, and I managed to achieve another bronze medal, beating Belgium. But I was leading the whole way, and it come down basically to if I missed the last caution he hit, I would have lost, and I was a long way in front for the thing. So it was he was creeping back, and I was down in the dumps for a little while, and I managed to hit that last sort of 9 meter cosh, which again that will live with me because that for me is like the epitome of pressure. If I miss, it's probably game over. So it was a hit to win. I think we may have been level. We might have even been. Yeah, no, I think he was just behind, but like he hit the last three or something. And that to me again is the epitome of pressure moments, what I practice for. So that's kind of how I prepare myself for those sort of shots. You don't. I always tell myself I've practiced for this. This is what
Yeah.
all these hours of work have gone into. Just hit it. Don't be an idiot, basically. Um, and yeah, hitting that again to secure it. Hearing Kai and the people around me shouting and that. Yeah, they're probably the most memorable. And I think most memorable moment or proudest moment, I would say, from a less selfish point of view, obviously beating Tyson and that is still going to be, for me personally, the best. But in terms of feeling and emotion, me, Dean, has got qualifying for the championships for the first time after failing for like 2 or 3 years. They'd just come back from their kidney transplant together, and exactly a year later, qualifying for that and the emotions that came with that was, I don't think that'll ever be matched by anything.
Yeah.
Qualifying for that and just I can't even describe how it felt. Like seeing Dean in tears and Scott in tears and everybody just expressing all their emotions in the best ways. And I remember just coming back. We had a little celebration in the garden, a little bit of champagne, and jumped in the swimming pool. And then we sat down, and Scott announced that he was Scott announced then. So we'd celebrated, we'd all, hugged and jumped around like idiots and jumped in the pool. And then we all sat down talking about the series and how well it had gone. And Scott was talking about how, because previously it had been probably my fault. I hadn't shot to the standard that I usually do. And then that particular year, I'd managed to step up and play quite well. And I remember Scott saying, like, Jason, you've been unreal. Keep up to this. And just want to say, like, it gets better from there. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, and then he announced that he was having a baby. So that whole day was just unbelievable. I think that's probably my most precious or memorable moment in Petanque and probably will be forever.
Brilliant. Okay, so dream team, UK and international, live, dead, you know, uh, who would be your dream team? Apart from me, of course.
I think this sounds really cringy, but I think I probably already had what I would say is my dream team. But I'll go based off of obviously not these people that I play with now. I would say I never had the opportunity, but I'd probably say Lee Jameson and I don't know. Maybe me, Lee Jameson, and Matt Horrigan. I've played with Matt a few times, but there's something about playing with Matt. It's quite because he's such an anomaly. Like if he wants to try, he is incredible, and if he
Matt,
doesn't
yeah,
try, he
I
is
played with Matt for many years. He is one of the most gifted players I've ever come across,
yeah,
and the most blasé player I've ever come across.
yeah. So I think probably Lee Jameson and Matt Horrigan. I think that would be. There's obviously players maybe that I'm not thinking of, but I think they're the two that spring to mind sort of now.
Apart from your existing team. And
Yeah,
international, you've obviously played against many and seen many and are a student of the game.
I would say I feel like most people would go Rocher and Rizzi, but I'm going to go a little bit out of the box. I'm going to say Kante and Passo.
Cool.
I think watching Passo shoot was like a little bomber, tiny, slung it down at 100 miles an hour, but everything was a carrot pretty much. And
Yeah.
Kante, you don't even need to say it; it's the king of the game. Lovely man as well. I spent a bit of time with him in Jersey last week, and he's a really good person. But you just watch him play, and you're just in awe of what he does. He does everything to 95% pretty much all of the time, which is just, and it looks like he's not even trying. So yeah, probably Kante and Passo.
I was lucky to play Kante a number of times at his height of his when he was young, Susho was young, they were winning the worlds and thrashing everyone. And I remember getting battered, but I also remember taking him to 12 and him looking at me and
Hmm.
yeah. So it was good. Final one. You've obviously found a balance between your personal life, your work life, your petanque life. How have you managed to find that balance? Because in my mind, it's all of you guys all sitting around a table, eating and drinking and just talking non-stop petanque, but it obviously isn't that way.
It kind of pretty much is that way.
It is that
So
way.
my house, there's me, Dean, my mum, Kai, and Alex. Obviously, my partner, she plays as well. Um, we've we've got it pretty separated. So we've got kind of our own kind of living area upstairs. So I've got my room with Alex. Kai's got his room, and we've got the spare room as kind of a living area upstairs. Mum and Dean have their room downstairs. We've got the living space that we can share, kitchen, but we pretty much 95% of the time only talk petanque. And to be honest, our whole even work and stuff, we work to play petanque. We earn our money to spend our money going abroad to play petanque. So it literally is that exactly what you said. I think within a 2 week span, I mean, we had a week off for the school holidays in May, and we went to Sweden, and then went to work for a week. And on the Friday, went straight down to Luton Airport, flew to Berlin, played a tournament in Berlin, landed at 1 in the morning, went to work, slept in the car park, um, in the car park at work in a Fiat 500, three of us, and then went to work the next day, and then the week after another double header, and it is just an obsession. Like we are all Kai gets a little bit burnt out because he's come from not playing that much and kind of not being obsessed with baton to now coming up to being like trying to keep up with us who have always done this. Like I've been playing for 11 years now, and for all of that 11 years, I've played virtually every weekend and travelled all the time. And he's had times where he's done that, not done that, done that, not that. So now he's trying to keep up so he can get a little bit burnt out from it. Um, I can't get enough of it. I think traveling, making friends. I'm lucky enough to have friends in Boules in London and Boules in Sweden, which is where it all kind of originated. You know, Ivar, who's the vice champion of Europe in singles, and like he's a really good friend of mine now. And we get invites to tournaments out there and spend a lot of time with them. And it's just I don't think I could change it. I play I work to be able to fund my obsession with petanque, and that is it.
It's a great obsession. I'm a man who has the same thing. Even though I've fallen in and out of love with it, here I am back again and doing this. Listen, Jason, you've been absolutely remarkable. Your insights have been fabulous. It's great to hear stories. And although we've played each other many times, we haven't played together. You never know.
Well, one time, absolutely, we'll do it.
It's I'm very much looking forward to, seeing you on the piste again. Maybe, hopefully you'll get lots of thumbs up and people will enjoy this as much as I have. And hopefully they'll smash your link out of the park with a big old carrow. I'll put the link into the description as well anyway, with your special code PSOWJ.
That's
Yep,
the one, yeah.
perfect. And look, see you on the pitch sometime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take care.
Thanks again. Cheers now. Bye bye.